So we're reading this week two Torah portions, Acharei Mos and Kedoshim. Acharei Mos starts off talking about the laws of Yom Kippur. Now the word Acharei Mos means after. Acharei means after the passing of the two sons of Aaron. Even though it happened a few chapters earlier, as we mentioned, it's still we're saying, and it came to pass after that God spoke to Moses and told him the laws of Yom Kippur, of Day of Atonement. And the question is, so it's called Parshas Acharei. So I once heard it was like a little thing for kids. So thank you. They said Acharei means after. They said, why is this parsha called Acharei, which means after? It should be called Yom Kippur. It should be called the Day of Atonement. That's the big day. Our biggest holiday of the year is Yom Kippur, right? So the answer that they said is Shavuos is going to be at the end of the month. About a month from now is Shavuos, and we have Lag Bomer before that, and so Yom Kippur is going to be in October. But we're reading about it in this week's Torah portion, and we'll read this portion again on Yom Kippur actually, but since we're reading just straight through the Torah, this is what we happen to be up to at this point, and every year this time we're up to this generally. So the question is, why is this portion called? Because we just read straight through.
Yeah, where this right after Passover.
No, it's just how it fits into our schedule, because we read about Passover usually in the winter time. We read straight through. We start the Torah at Simchas Torah and we finish it on Simchas Torah, and we go through the whole cycle every year of reading from Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. But I want to get back. I don't want to get off topic. I want to get back to
Genesis with Joseph, right?
Joseph is in Genesis, yeah, the end of Genesis, yeah.
Wasn't he higher than Moses even?
Moses was the greatest prophet. Yosef is called Yosef Tzaddik. We only have a few minutes, so let me just finish this idea. So it says that. So this tape for little kids. They said like this. They said, why is this Torah portion called Acharei, which means after, instead of called Yom Kippur? So he said the answer is, what matters more than what you do on Yom Kippur is what you do after Yom Kippur. Meaning, yes, it's very important to fast and pray all day on Yom Kippur. It's a very holy thing. But if it really meant something, then when you go home and how you treat your friends and your family, and like they were talking to little kids, how you act, do you practice good sportsmanship when you're playing, or do you get rude and nasty? Do you do the right thing or do you do the wrong thing? Meaning, all that religious stuff should also make your everyday life holy and better. And that's really the theme of the next portion, because we read two portions this week, Acharei Mos and Kedoshim. Kedoshim means holy. It says, Kedoshim tiyu ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokeichem. It says, you should be holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy. And then it goes through all these laws. And I from the same company, I saw also something for little kids, but it's a very deep lesson. There was these two puppets, and they were talking, and the one said, what are you doing? He said, I'm meditating, I'm trying to be holy. But he said, look at what the Torah says about being holy. Love thy neighbor. Don't be rude, don't play tricks, don't be mean. Be a good person, be honest.
The greatest thing that a person can do is think God. I mean, the worst sin a person can do is think God's name in vain.
I saw a teaching from the Maral about that, but that seems to indicate something like that. But that's not what the point we're saying now. The point I'm saying is that living your life, yes, we're religious people. Judaism expects Jews to keep Shabbos and kosher and all of these, and to pray 3 times a day, and to do all of these things, and to study the Torah and everything. But in addition to that, and just as important, maybe more important, who knows, is just living your life like a mensch, being a good person, doing what you're supposed to do, living life the way it's supposed to be. And I'll give an example. This past Shabbos was the yard site of Rabbi Shaila of Kerastir. He was a Hasidic Rebbe who lived in the early 20th century in Hungary. He was known as a great miracle worker, and he was a very beloved Jewish saint from the Hasidic tradition from Hungary. And I know people who went to visit his grave this weekend in observance of his yard site. And I know his family. And Reb Shaila Kerastir, they say on Rosh Hashanah, before the sounding of the shofar, most of the mystical Hasidic masters would be involved in great meditations. They would go to the mikveh and they would meditate to get ready for this big mitzvah that comes once a year of blowing the shofar. But what did Rabbi Shaila do? Rabbi Yeshaya of Kerastir, Rabbi Yeshaya Steiner, was this very holy rabbi. What was he doing? This is Rabbi Steiner. This is from Hungary. Rabbi Schneerson was from Russia. So Rabbi Steiner, what was he doing to prepare for this very awesome moment? He was cutting up cake to serve at the Kiddush when they were done with the services. This way all the congregants should feel comfortable and enjoy some good food. And so the point was being a servant, serving the people, not making himself aloof and separate from the people, but rather making himself a servant to the people. He felt that was the greatest expression of holiness, and the way that he could prepare for this great mitzvah of hearing the shofar, of sounding the shofar, was by helping someone else, was by being something so mundane, cutting up cake, but could really be very holy. And if we think about that in our lives, to have everyday holiness, not just to think that you have to go, there was a story, there was a woman from Bensonhurst, a Jewish woman. She went and made a pilgrimage to Nepal, to the Himalayas, to go meet this great guru who was sitting on top of a mountain meditating, and many people came to be enlightened by him. And she went through this whole trek and journey and finally came there to the mountain, and she met the guru, and she finally came face to face with him, and she said, "Harvey, enough with the mishigas, come home already." Meaning, it's not, the holiness is not sitting and meditating. It's a good thing to sit and meditate once in a while, to think about the world, to have mindfulness. All these things are beautiful, important, and part of life. But more important than that is that everyday holiness. There was actually a true story. There's a famous Jewish speaker, very popular women speaker, Sarah Yocheved Rigler. She lives in Jerusalem. And she said that before she came to Orthodox Judaism, she was also practicing one of these Eastern religions. She was living in an ashram, meditating, and at one point she got into a very intense meditative state, and someone knocked on the door and interrupted her meditation, and she got so angry at that person. "How dare you interrupt me while I'm trying to meditate?" And when she came to Judaism, she realized that that's not holy. To be angry about something like that? Why should she get angry? And then years later, she's in Jerusalem, and she has a family and children, and she has a 2-year-old son. She's serving him a bowl of Cheerios, filled with milk and Cheerios. And her son comes, and he spills the whole bowl of Cheerios on the floor. Do you think she got angry? No. And when she didn't get angry, she said this is what she was trying for her whole life. To have real, authentic, everyday holiness. To not let the anger overcome her. To be in control of her emotions. How can she blame a little kid for dropping some Cheerios? Most people would get angry for that. But if you're trained yourself and she worked on herself to overcome those anger issues, that was the true holiness. That was a much higher level than all the meditation. Nothing against the meditation. It's nice. It has its time and its place. But to have that accomplishment that she didn't get angry at her baby for spilling the Cheerios. That's what it's really about. We don't live up to it. It's hard, but that's what we have to at least strive for. And in that way, that's what we say, that what matters is what, not all the religious stuff you do, which is nice, not what happens when you're in the synagogue or the church or the mosque, but what happens afterwards. That's what's really holy. When you go home and you live your life and you treat your family and your friends in a nice way, that's what true holiness is. Love your neighbor. That's what it's all about. All right.
My mom, she said to me,